So your first one.
Perfect. Yeah, that's very flashy. That's great. Before we start, like I want to test your legal knowledge. Whenever like you are going to be discriminated, what are the main reasons you can be discriminated, like according to the law? Do you have any idea? Race, yeah, that's very good. One for you. What else? What could you be discriminated against? Age, yes, there you go. What else? Gender, very good. What did you get? Oh, sorry. And another one? Age, already said. Oh,
Sexual orientation.
what?
Protected status, like pregnancy.
Pregnancy? Yeah, that could be interesting. We'll give it one
Sexual
to
orientation.
sexual orientation also. Yes, exactly. Well, thank you so much for interacting with me. Basically, like the law does protect different discrimination grounds when it comes like to this field of law and AI. We will see like in the presentation that it has like many different forms and shapes, and that we are together in the Bias Project trying to shape vision together in this topic. So my name is Eduard Fosch-Villaronga. I'm from Barcelona originally, but I am with Leiden University. So we stem from the idea that designing AI solutions can profoundly impact society as a whole, and that necessitates a socio-technical and participatory effort that incorporates several different aspects, including technical, social, economic, political, and of course, legal considerations. So the objectives that we have in this project basically is to gain a new and consolidated understanding about fairness in AI in the labor market through multidisciplinary and cross-sector lenses, but also to establish what are the trustworthy foundations for this debiaser tool that we do not know yet if we will finally call it this way. Like last week we were in a conference and we were saying like you cannot really debias some of these tools, so we will have also to discuss that in the consortium, but like to understand like how we can guide the project partners also with this knowledge. So for the agenda of today, basically I'm going to show you a little bit what had been our efforts. Like we've been working on the literature review, the mapping exercise on what is the state of the art of these tools. We also conducted some interviews, but then we were very much interested in mapping the public perceptions of fairness from different workers across Europe, and also what are the efforts that we are taking in order to build this following a co-creational approach. So when it comes like to the literature review, what we realize is that examining, for some reason, examining the evolution and the state-of-the-art research on fairness and diversity of AI applications in the labor market was actually our goal. And what we did was to follow a multidisciplinary lenses. So what we found out is that there are like the two main stakeholders in here, one being the job applicants, which have a focus on whether they want to be treated equally, especially about the outcome, whether they are hired or not. HR practitioners usually focus on what is the greatest benefit that, that these processes are going to bring to the own company. And then when looking like at the law, what we realize is that there are like three main pieces of legislation that integrate fairness into their lenses, being data protection law, which tries to establish or eradicate imbalances in different power asymmetries between different stakeholders. Anti-discrimination law that focuses on direct, indirect, and positive discrimination. And the new AI Act that focuses on the respect for diversity and non-discrimination. And I'm going to go like very quickly like in each of them. So from the job applicant's viewpoint, there are like two main types of fairness that they are like very much interested in. One of them being a substantive fairness, which arises from the desire for equitable treatment and outcome by comparing their knowledge, skills, and efforts within the hiring decision that comes from the HR practitioners. And then there is also like procedural fairness, which is very much looking at whether the selection and the recruitment procedures are considered a means to achieve a fair hiring outcome and should comply with several requirements like transparency, job relatedness, and consistency. When looking at HR practitioners, fairness to them often corresponds to the greatest benefits that the employer and the immediate stakeholders will have, irrespective of this procedural fairness or any positive consequence that this may have for society. This may be related because they are just concerned with what their company are doing. So for them, matching is of utmost importance, and diversity in the workforce is a knowledge, but it is challenging. So that's what we found out. Just like a quick recap on the data protection law, what we see is that in data protection law, fairness is put together with lawfulness and transparency. So like these are like big requirements from data protection law. You can only process data when it is legal, and also you need to do it in a transparent way. But also that it really focuses on preventing these unbalanced relationships between the data subject, in this case the worker, but also other stakeholders, in this case the company, for instance. In anti-discrimination law, fairness relates to all those situations where a person is treated less favorably than another is. For instance, in a situation that could be comparable because of their personal characteristics, so that would be direct discrimination. And an apparently neutral provision, criterion, or practice that unjustifiably puts a person or some people at a particular disadvantage in comparison with other people, so something that it is indirect discrimination. And there could be also what we call positive discrimination or discrimination by association. Positive discrimination being we will favor female candidates because they have been misrepresented throughout the history. Looking at the latest knowledges or advances in AI, there are like new laws coming up in the European Union with respect to artificial intelligence, and the high-level expert group basically regarded fairness as an ethical principle that will take shape now in the AI Act. We know that that they are very much looking at how both in technical and non-technical terms this will transpose. Just for you to see, we still do not have the final text of the AI Act, but once it is going to be out there, basically the article number 4 includes the 7 requirements. If you are familiar with the trustworthy scheme, includes now these aspects, being fairness one of them. And it is understood in a way that includes diverse actors and promotes equal access, gender equality, and cultural diversity while avoiding discrimination, impacts, and unfair biases that are prohibited by union or national law. Now, this is a little bit of a background information, and the little exercise that we did, it relates especially with this. So like, what are the categories that the law currently conceives that may be grounds for discrimination, and whether then in this new world in which we use AI for this labor market, then this law gives response to these aspects. So once we knew a little bit like what were like all of these different perspectives, like coming from the job applicants, the companies, and so what we wanted to do it is to just map out what is the state of the art of these applications in Europe. So what we did is using desktop research and structured questionnaires, we did a survey to identify the current AI applications, to conceptualize its use and specificities, and also to explore diversity issues that were especially regarding the data processing, operations, and mitigated measures and fairness perceptions. So what we did was to make it easy, like we did like a very simple form in which like all of the partners like managed to survey that. And the insights that we managed to have is from different 35 companies that they are working on two main kind of applications. So it's streamlining HR practices on the one side, and then other ones that they are already working on addressing diversity biases. Most of the applications focus on maximizing the hiring process. And then we have two specific interesting things, is that the majority of the companies do have provisions when it comes to data protection compliance. So it seems that fairness, lawfulness, and the legality of this processing of personal data is highlighted. But in general, there is a little bit of lack of transparency, whether there is a human involvement in AI in the use, and also whether they have had some attentions to diversity considerations. That for what it comes to the developing part. Once we knew this, what we wanted to know is what are the opinions for different experts and also the different developers. So what we wanted to gather is, or like the idea was to examine the professional experience of HR practitioners and AI developers on fairness and diversity biases of AI applications in the labor market. So what we managed to do is to conduct semi-structured and anonymized interviews within our consortium. And we interviewed 71 people, and the gender distribution is as shown here. So basically we had 45 women, 17 AI developers, and 28 HR practitioners, and 26 men, which is already revealing about like how of the gender distribution shows about the awareness of these topics. So the results that we gather from that exercise is that there is a shared recognition that diversity biases of AI applications in the labor market exist, that there is indeed a widespread adoption of AI applications in the hiring process, and this is helpful for us to know, because since we are like a European project, we really want to know whether this is actually a practice that it is taking place or not, so like the relevance of it. That there is a dominant perspective in evaluating fairness through procedural lenses, so whether the process is going to put the candidates in a disadvantaged position with respect to other candidates that they share similar characteristics, and that they are indeed interested in implementing mitigation strategies like the biaser tool, and also to integrate like some of these social awareness campaigns. What these like show us is that in a way there are many of these experts that view diversity as an extremely relevant concept, but that they lack concrete guidance on how to operationalize some of these topics. This is kind of surprising, knowing that discrimination, as we have seen, data protection law, anti-discrimination law, and now the AI Act, they are binding obligations. So like in theory, they should have that at the beginning or their priorities, given that it is legal requirements. So once we did this, because we have done the literature review, we have tried to see like what is out there in the market, and then also see the experts. One of the novelties of the BIAS project was actually to try to ask different visions from the workers and also laymen to understand what were their attitudes towards automation in the labor market. So the goal was basically to understand these attitudes so that we could better understand to what extent they, some of these candidates, they have felt discriminated, or they see that there is a problem with them, etc. Surveying these attitudes, for your information, it is extremely important for policy formation, because sometimes the affected users of these decisions are not taken into account in the policy sphere. So by doing that, we can actually have a better understanding of what are the potential impacts that this technology may have on these groups of population. So what we did is to have many different iterations on the questionnaire. It was not perfect, but what we did also was like to try to be as inclusive as possible. So we translated the survey in different languages and was validated. And when Qualtrics was not doing funny stuff, we managed like to go ahead. Just for you, I do not know if any one of you is doing surveys currently. Yes? Okay. So we are going to share a little bit of our also experience, so just for you to know, because I don't know what is your experience, but we found it that it was extremely hard. Not only on the conception of the survey, but like once we already arrived to that stage, we were extremely successful in disseminating the survey throughout many different channels. The problem was to ensure the responses, and that was a main challenge. So if anyone is like thinking about doing a survey, think it twice. Like ensure that you really are capable of addressing or getting those numbers. So what happened is that in the end, our efforts managed to get 1,000 respondents, but then we needed to look into ways into having prolific in order to get like more data. So in the end, we did reach our KPI. So like we managed to have an incredible amount of responses. But because of the time, I will just like go quickly to what it is interesting, is that we had a 4-tier structure in which we asked for the interaction, whether the respondent had ever interacted with one of these systems, what was their experience, what was the perception of that interaction, and then also we collected some demographic information to understand a little bit what was the pool of the respondents. And here there are like some of the questions that they are interesting. Some of the people, what we realized is that at the beginning, like it seemed that they did indeed interacted with some of these applications. Some of them, they actually were hesitant. They didn't know exactly, but what do you mean of AI in the labor market? But then we provided some examples and we said, you know, using LinkedIn may be an indication of having like an algorithmic-based system that could be part of this. So then, a lot of the people, they actually changed their opinion. They said like, oh, actually, I think that yes, I interacted with some of these systems. When looking at the lack of transparency, for instance, what we see is that the majority of them, they were informed about the usage of AI within the platform, but we also see a great number that they did not remember, or they directly said that no, that they were not informed about it. And then when we looked at the opting out of the application, in theory there is a right to opt out of the platform. We also see that a large number said that there was no clear no option to get out. This is important because as you probably have seen all of these cookies pop out and so on, there has been like a lot of effort from the institutions to really make it easy for the laymen or users, all of us, to opt out from some of this processing. So we see that there is a little bit of areas to attend. They are not sure whether there is a human involved into the platform, so like that is a little bit opaque. With respect to whether there is a human in the loop or not. What we saw is that the amount of data that they believed that they were being collected was actually kind of large, so like many different categories. So as you have seen, they're actually even more specific than what we actually were discussing at the beginning of this exercise. And what we see is that when they were asked about the perception of the discrimination, it is interesting because they did believe that, yes, that the information that they revealed could actually be used against them. They were not that sure whether that information could be used for positive discrimination. And yeah, this is the positive discrimination. But actually, one of the very interesting things that we found out, and I am finishing, is that even though they might perceive that some of this information may be used to adversely discriminate against them, they actually didn't perceive that they were discriminated. So what we are going to see, I think that the more and more, is that if someone has been not selected in one of these applications, it might be nearly or practically impossible to understand whether there has been a discrimination or not, and that is problematic in many fronts. Just to look at this, because I could talk more, but just like in theory, there was like a positive perception when it comes like to fairness from the labor market. So like there was like not that much of a backlash in that respect. And what I wanted to say in this already over the time meeting is that what we tried to do then is to compile all of this information and actually gather together to then try to co-create like this tool that we have. So like basically like our role like in the project has been like to really try from all of these different strains of knowledge, how then we can sit down together with the different stakeholders, because they have different visions, they have different roles and responsibilities towards these developments, and how we can gather together for that. So summing up, designing AI solutions may have consequences for society, and this requires a multidisciplinary approach. The literature review helped us look at previous efforts at the theoretical level. The mapping exercise helped us understand the state of the art and the thinking behind the professionals working on these areas, and that I could expand a lot, but you know, I can talk a lot. And the survey helped us map the public and worker attitudes, but also their worries towards automation in the labor market. And what we are doing currently, it is to bring these voices in co-creational approach sessions to pave a trustworthy way forward in AI in the labor market. So please join us in this endeavor and join the national labs. We also have like an international lab if you are not from one of the project members. And that's it. I'm here for any questions if you have. Thank you.
Many thanks, Eduard. So we have 10 minutes for discussion. So yeah. Yes, now, yeah, for you, yeah. 10 minutes, yeah.
I thought that I already ate up the...
No.
Yes.
I'm Martin Rahman from EPFL. Two questions related to the development work, very interesting. We can approach the problem of the bias with two complementary objectives, because you want to avoid difficult problems, but then you have to rely on existing legislation, which is not so extensive in terms of bias.
Yes.
Before, if you look at the Swiss law, there are basically few parameters that you can really go to court with.
Yes.
Or you can, or you could think of it from a perspective of improving the hiring process. So here the problem is different, is you may have internal convictions that having certain types of balances, etc., make the workforce better.
Yeah.
How do you see these two being combined or be pursued in parallel?
Yeah, thank you so much. So at the end of the project, we do have the ambition to sit down together with Sense and Elec and to start like what they called a Sense and Elec workshop agreement, so CWA. That's the first level of standardization towards some of these aspects. What we realize is that current discriminatory grounds might not be sufficient to help us in mitigating these biases, especially because of the new categories of biases that we may have, but also for proxy discrimination. No? When I say that I practice knitting and yoga, this may actually lead to a certain discrimination that may actually be more be related to a woman. Now, the current legislation was conceived at a time in which categories, even as gender, were basically rooted in sex, so men and women, for instance. So not that much accounting for intersex community, but the contemporary knowledge of gender, of sexual orientation, of race, etc., is actually expanding. No, so we're very conscious about this. So we want to really take active steps towards bringing all of this knowledge to the first standardization activities. But the other way in which we are trying to address this is that together with our technical colleagues, and especially with Alex, we're going to run what it's called the ALTI, so the Assessment List of Trustworthy AI, developed by the European Union. And how we're going to do this is that by basically are going to, in iterative processes, try to understand how that is applied with these kind of tools, so that we can start like building a little bit of knowledge towards how then these requirements can be actually operationalized in practice and over time. And we are doing this with very creative ways. We are academics, so like we're engaging like with advanced master students, like to do like a practicum, like towards that, like to at least like to get the conversation started. But at the end of the project, the idea is to have like this example of how Altai applies into this field, and how then other companies could actually be able to reproduce some of these assessments, so that they, over time, like also they can integrate them in the future. So a little bit both, trying that our knowledge informs the tools, but also policy practices. Any other questions? Yeah.
Do you see any geographical or demographic correlates of the perception that discrimination has been that AI has participated in discriminating in the job market in your poll?
So not yet, but we are looking into this. So basically, like now we have had a roughly, let me see if I can see. We have had roughly a look at this. So like basically, we're going to rely like on the demographic data that we have in our survey. So currently this year, because it's only 1 year that we exist, so it's a very short time. But this year we will be analyzing all of this data. And what we have realized is that we had a lot of respondents from Portugal, Poland, and Germany, and so. Actually, when we were looking at the coefficients like from the countries, they are kind of represented like still, like because they are like very little numbers, a little bit here behind, but like they are little countries also. So we did our really best, like to see like or to have a representative sample, but we cannot say that we managed to do so. But this is exactly what we are going to try to see, whether there are like commonalities with especially north, south, eastern countries, and then like see whether then these perceptions are actually like meaningful also or policy relevant, no? Like, I mean, like, are they important or not? So not yet, but thank you. Yes, we will be looking into that. Did you feel discriminated by any AI tool in the market? No.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what is a challenge and probably bottleneck in your project? Do you see any challenges like, or might?
Did you talk with the European reviewers? No. So sort of like a challenge, you mean?
Yeah, or bottleneck. When probably you think that one part of the project might be very like easy to expand, and from another part of the project might be more difficult to do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So I need to say that this consortium actually is, I would say, like very healthy, like, or like the way like we approach, like when we see like that there's like a problem coming up, like we have like all of these mitigation sort of like meetings that we do. For instance, like we were not thinking that the survey would have been such a difficult aspect, for instance. So that was a challenge, you know, but like in the end, like we managed to go ahead. I think that one of the challenges perhaps like is on the technical partners, like how to bring this together. But so far, like they are doing an excellent job, like in bringing all of these together. So whereas I think that what we see in this project is that it's very exciting because we do not actually know that well how the interface will look like, or like we have some ideas and we are working towards that, but because we are taking all of these co-creational approaches, like we are actually like trying to ask from different perspectives, like how a tool like this would look like and what are the main functionalities that it will look like, and so in a way now at the very beginning of the project, so we are confident that with the remaining 3 years we can manage to do what we promised.
Thank you.